Hello, this is Professor Baswai. Today we will do order of operations involving real numbers. Okay, the first thing you need to remember is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Let's go over it. P stands for parentheses, brackets, any fraction bar, braces, square root, absolute value. Those are all grouping symbols. Even though P stands for parentheses, it involves all these guys. E stands for exponents, things that look like this, 2 to the power of 3. M stands for multiplication. D stands for division. A stands for addition. S stands for subtraction. Now, addition and subtraction, they are not going to take precedence over each other, but you do them from left to right. Multiplication, division, you will also do them left to right. But when you see any of these guys before these guys, you do them first. So let's go see how this works out. Now, before I do this, I would like to go over a couple of exponent rules. Okay, anything to the first power is itself. Anything to the 0th power is 1. Except this one is undefined, but we are not going to tackle this right now. But anything to the 0th power, anything other than 0 to the 0th power is 1. 2.4 to the 3rd power is 2.4 times 2.4 times 2.4. You can actually do that in your calculator, is 13.824. Now, this one is important. When you see something negative and there's an exponent, it's kind of, think about it as like 0 minus 2.5 squared. Think of it that way. Put a 0 in front of it. That doesn't change anything. This is a subtraction. This is an exponent. Guess what? You are going to do the exponent first before you subtract. 2.5 squared is 6.25. And you're subtracting this from 0, so you're going to have a negative. Now let's look at 2.6. When you do this, this means negative 2.6 times negative 2.6. Guess what? Since there are parentheses around the 2.6, you're going to get a positive answer. And when you take 2.6 times 2.6, you get 6.76. All right, so make sure that you understand the difference between these two. This one has parentheses, this one doesn't. How about a cube? This means I can put a 0 in front of it to see how it works. 2.7 cubed happens to be 19.683. And you're subtracting this from 0. So that means you're going to get a negative 19.683. Okay? This one has a problem with this, so let's do this. 0 to the 4th power. So 0 to an exponent means 0, 0, 0, 0. 4 times you get a 0. So don't mix this one up with this one. Now that we have our exponents straightened out, let's go to the next one. Oh gosh, I didn't put a thing. I have all these little dots in here. Okay, so let's go do this one. I have to look at this. Here's a grouping symbol. Here's another grouping symbol. I'm going to do them separately. Negative 3.4 plus 4.5. So I do that. I take the difference. The difference is 1.1. This one is going to stay as is. And then I have 9.2 minus 3.4. That happens to be 5.8. And I now have a subtraction, a square root, and this. So I can actually divide this. And then I can take square root of this. And then subtract. When I divide this, I get 0.5. When I take square root of this, I get 2.408. And guess what? This is being subtracted. When you subtract, positive, negative, this is a bigger number. Take the difference, 1.908. And guess what? Since this is negative, it's going to end up with a negative answer. So these are not that hard. but kind of like pay attention to how that's done. Now let's do an addition subtraction, and remember they don't take any precedence. I just do them from left to right. So let's go and add 3.4 and 2.4. That's going to give you 5.8. Now I'm supposed to subtract 6.8 from 5.8. Take the difference. The difference is 1, and that's a negative because that one is a bigger number. How about a little bit more? I have like here bunch of multiplication and division. Okay, now I'm going to do them from left to right. So let's go and let's do the multiplication. I multiplied these for you before. So 2.3 and 4.5, that gives me 10.35. And since it's negative positive, that's going to end up with a negative. Now I'm going to go and multiply this by 3. Okay? And that's going to give me negative 31.05. Okay? So this whole thing turned out to be this number. Now I still have to go and I have to divide this by 4.2. Okay? 31.05 divided by 4.2, that gives me 7.393. But the thing is, this is a negative, this is a positive, so I'm going to end up with a negative number. So write clearly so that you're okay, and do the multiplication division if there are a bunch of them together, left to right. Okay, how about I mix addition, subtraction, and multiplication, all these guys, and which one do you do first? So here's an addition, here's a division. Which one do I do first? I'm supposed to do the division first. So let's go and do this guy. What is 4.3 divided by 2.5? That actually is 1.72. And rewrite what I had before. So I have negative 10.5, which comes from here. And then there's a plus in front of it. Now I can do this negative 10.5 plus 1.72, so the difference is 8.78. And since this is negative, it's going to end up with a negative. But remember, you may have a tendency to add this and divide. That's not what you're going to do. You're going to divide first and then do the addition. Okay. Something like that. Sometimes, you know, this means like a star asterisk, but that means a multiplication, so keep that in mind. So how do I do this problem? Now I have a multiplication, division, subtraction, multiplication. Watch. I'm going to tackle this guy, and then there's a multiplication here. So let's do this one, and let's do that one, and then do all this addition, subtraction, all these guys later on. So what is 3.2 times 4.5? That gives me negative 14.4. I still have to divide this by a negative 0.5. I still have a negative 6.6. And I multiply these two guys, and that actually gives me 2. This one, you can think of it as 2.2, and this one is 5.2. When I multiply, I get 11.44. Look what I have. Now, I still have this division to do. So these two things divided will give me 28.8. Then I still have a 6.6. I still have an 11.44. Now you do them from left to right, and you're going to get this minus that plus that. That's going to give me 33.64. Is that right? All right. So let me do this with my calculator. I have 28.8 minus 6.6 plus 11.44. That is 33.64. That's correct. So pay attention to the order of operations, and you're going to be okay. And also pay attention to the signs of your real numbers.